So you take away the idea that the outer edge of something is all there is to it. The shell of the acorn doesn't look like much, but look at the design inside of that thing. Look what it's going to be, a gargantuan oak tree. And the animals that are guiding us into this new fifth dimensional change, into this new earth change, it's already here. It's happening here. It's where we choose to put our attention.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. And welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. Today, my guest is Amelia Kinkade. Amelia, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here.
Oh my goodness. You know, your first episode was so popular. We had so many wonderful comments and people just loved it, got a lot out of it. And I'm just so grateful that you agreed to come back. And by the way, everybody, that is episode 96. And we talked a lot about animal communication, tapping into the morphic field. And it was just a very powerful and important, timely message, and one that really is still very, very relevant today. And, you know, I've come to just know and love you so much, Amelia. I just hook, line, and sinker. Ever since I first connected with you, I'm like, oh, yes, this is my girl. These are my peeps. And you offer so many online wonderful courses where we get to interact with you personally and learn from your vast experience. And like I said in the introduction, you are so much more than an animal communicator and a world-class animal communicator. You are a mystic, my friend. You are truly a spiritual master. And I have learned so much from you. I love your online courses. I really hope the audience checks them out. All that's in the show notes, and we're going to get to that at the end. But through one of your many courses, I learned a lot about the process of death and dying. It comes up a lot with the students, with our pets. And of course, reincarnation is a lot to do with the work. And unfortunately, I just experienced it personally myself with the passing of my beautiful little 14-and-a-half-year-old Yorkshire Terrier, Charlotte. It just happened just about 2 weeks ago, I think, exactly to the day. I wasn't even able to talk about it until like about 5-6 days ago. And you saw me. I was a complete mess. I was devastated. So when you agreed to come back on the show and address death and dying, because it's part of life, right? And we all experience death eventually, you know, and people we love and pets and animals and things we love, loss. And I just was so grateful that you're going to share your wisdom and perspective on how we can deal with these extremely painful emotions.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Amy. I mean, everyone who loves animals so incredibly deeply, and even the most skeptical people often do, and they don't want to admit it. I've had so many radio interviews with guys who, at the end of a kickboxing match with some of these very smart alecky DJs, have actually burst into tears and said, you know, I've been giving you a hard time, but the truth of the matter is, I just lost my dog. And she saw me through 2 divorces and the loss of my father and moving across country. And I mean, and this one particular DJ, I'll never forget it. He said, the truth of the matter is that she had a cancer tumor, and I would have given anything to know in advance. I would have given anything to know what you know. And that also revolves around learning how to be fully present in a very different way. Even as you started talking, I had this vision. And the vision was about seeds that have within them the blueprint of a rose bush or an oak tree or a huge pine tree. I mean, and to look at this, to look at the seed of it, the little acorn, the little pine cone, it seems very much like the end of the story. Like, this is what this is. This is what this is. You're looking at an acorn without knowing what's inside of it, what it's capable of, what it's going to become if it's nourished properly. And that so-called psychic ability, I mean, all of us have what's called paranormal experiences or metaphysical and supernatural. And the astronaut, Edgar Mitchell, who was my mentor, who co-wrote my second book with me, The Language of Miracles, said there is no supernatural, there is no metaphysical, there is no paranormal. He said, if one person can do it, it's normal. It's happening on Earth. If there is no metaphysical, it's physics. Maybe our scientists don't know yet how to measure things, but they may not have the technology yet. Now, because of the MRI machine, they're developing the technology that allows us to actually measure energetic fields and measure what's coming out of a human being or out of an animal in the way of waves. And the wavelengths exist. So you could say you don't believe in the internet, or you don't believe in television, and you don't believe in your invisible communication, but that means you got to put your cell phone down and say this doesn't work. What's happening already is that the universe is in flux. And scientists have always known that. They know that the universe is it's emanating and absorbing. So it's exchanging energy like this. This vision of a rose bush. I once had a woman in one of my seminars. She was 9 months pregnant. She was sitting in the front row. I thought she was going to pop at any moment. And I think I was in Oslo. I know I was in Norway. It was either Oslo or Bergen, because I used to teach in both places before COVID. And I just thought she was going to deliver this baby in the middle of the workshop. And I went up to her and I said, your baby can hear me. Your baby understands every word I'm saying. And when you give birth to that child is going to be able to communicate with animals, because that baby is taking this workshop. I didn't hear from this lady again. And 5 years later, she came back with baby Amelia in her.
Oh no, she named her after you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Little Amelia.
Wow.
And the student said to me, she said, when the child was 4, so this was the year before that, they lost the family dog. So their family dog passed away. And she was crying. The mom was crying. And 4-year-old Amelia went up to the mother and said, Mommy, why are you crying? Animals are like flowers. They die in the winter and they come back in the spring.
Wow.
No,
Wow.
out of the mouth of a
babes.
4-year-old. Now, she didn't hear me say that. That was something that she and the mother said, how could she possibly have this wisdom? I mean, this is what's happening on Earth right now with all these little crystal avatar children being born. They are coming in with this wisdom and this kind of these abilities. So what we're talking about here is this flux. And what we don't understand and what causes the agony, the grief and the pain. And I didn't set out to prove reincarnation. I never was trying to beat a drum about saying reincarnation exists. I discovered it as a witness because everywhere I would teach, my students would raise hands and say, I have a dog who does the same strange thing that the last dog did who died years ago. Is it possible this is the same dog? And then finally got to the point where I just be teaching a workshop and I just say, let me see a show of hands. How many of you have an animal that you know you've had before in a previous body? 80% of the hands go up. No matter where I am, Amy, no matter where 27 countries, and every single country, they know this. So animals are sort of the through line because their lives are so much shorter than ours. With humans, it's true. And I know people who know that it's true. I have a dear friend who's Muslim, and you wouldn't believe how many of our belief systems are in perfect sync. And I predicted the birth of this child, that she was going to have a little boy, and then in 2 years, I predicted the marriage to the guy because she showed me a picture of the guy. She was dating a guy, online in Johannesburg. I said, "You're going to marry him." South African guy. I said, "You're going to marry him, and you're going to have 2 children. You're going to have a little boy, and then you're going to have a little girl." So when I went back to visit her when she had the baby, she had the little girl after the little boy. I walked into the room and this baby has a stronger presence than any adult I've ever met in my life. And I tended to the baby and I said, "Who are you?" She said, "Oh, I'm her grandmother." I didn't say it. My friend said to me, I said, "That's not a baby." She said, "I know, it's my grandmother."
Wow.
Just gave me a full body chill. But that's rare because our lives are so long, we don't get to see it very often. With your own animals, because their lives are short, we get to see it. And they go to heaven, in your case, to perform a very specific mission that's important at a very specific time. And they say, "I'm sorry, I got called to heaven. Something's going on. They need my help, and I'll be back in the spring. I'll be back at Easter time. You'll find me the 1st of June." It's such a normal story. And Dr. Bernie Siegel, who writes the forwards to my books, said that I said to Bernie, my birthday's New Year's Eve. I've never had my birthday off in my entire life. It's my busiest time from Christmas to New Year. That's when all the animals die. And
Really? Oh,
yeah,
that's horrible.
no,
Christmas time?
no, it's in perfect sync with
Wow.
the wheel of the year and the seasons. And Dr. Bernie Siegel said it's the same thing with human beings. And I said, "It's always 4 or 5 a.m. He said, "It's always 4 or 5 a.m. in the hospital with human beings." And I
Really?
said, "What is this?" And he said, animals in the wild die at the onset of winter. When an elderly elk or moose or bunny or any creature who's outside, fox, knows that they're not going to make it through another winter, they die at the winter solstice. And they come back at Easter time. And sometimes they're a few years off. They may have a few years in heaven before they come back, but they can actually tell you, "This is when I'm going to be back. This is what I'm going to look like. Yes, I'm going to be black and white. Yes, I'm going to be polydactyl. I'll have extra toes. You're going to find me." One of the stories in my books, "You're going to find me in a place called," I was trying to say, Garden of Eden, something like this. The woman found her in Mexico. I could only see the face of the cat. And she said, "This cat was polydactyl. You didn't know this cat had extra toes." And the cat gave me the date. It was like May 1st, Eve's Garden. And she finds her in this place that has the name Eve in the title. And it was the date that was predicted. So once we understand that death and dying, it's like a needle and thread, that when the the needle and the thread are in heaven, then the animal's not in 3D on earth, and then they come back into the tapestry, and then they go back up and they go back in the tapestry. And they're weaving something. Everything is being woven by design. And I'm not going to say that it can take all the pain away in the process of it. But when you find that same animal, and that same animal finds her way back to you, and there is no doubt this puppy is your dog from before, the joy that it
Of
gives.
course, it'll heal the wound that's can't be healed any other way.
And then you realize this isn't what I thought it was.
Mm,
Life on earth, it's not as shallow as we think it is.
yeah.
We're looking at the seed. We're watching the seed get buried in the ground and say, oh no, I've lost my seed. If you think about that, I mean, really, what an analogy. Because that's what we do. We bury them. But what we don't realize is we're burying a seed, and it's going to grow into something beautiful and find its way back to us.
What do you think the reason is? Why would the animal want to even come back and come back to the person? Is that it's like a soul contract for eternity? Like why would they even
A
want
lot
to
of
come back?
time with us. I mean, maybe not with everybody, because every situation is different. But from what I'm seeing right now, I'm a firm believer that the animal kingdom is an angelic kingdom. And you have certain spirit guides. It's kind of like the beginning. It's like the Wizard of Oz when she wakes up and she says, oh, you were the scarecrow. You were the Tin Man. I mean, they all come in, and it's all of the friends that she left before, which is what's happening to us, who we left before we came to the planet. But those souls may have assigned themselves to you to be your spirit guide.
Yeah.
So these animals are the ones that are bringing us consistency and unconditional love that we couldn't get from anybody else. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's the truth that if you had a terrible day, your dog's going to lick your tears. One of the most amazing stories, Amy, and when I first published this book, the first time I went on a live show, I was scared to death. So this was straight from the horse's mouth. It was 2001. I didn't know how it was going to be received. I just launched this work of revolutionary madness on the world, saying that animals can think and feel not only as much as we can, but more than we can. They're more loving. They're more relational. They're more caring.
More tapped in.
They're more tapped in.
Mhm.
They're more able to give comfort and joy and wisdom and put your focus on nature and beauty and get you out of your head and into your heart. And then on a medical sense, they lower your blood pressure. They equalize your brain waves. They equalize your heartbeat. They take care of us in so many ways. It's shocking.
Decrease inflammation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I went on the first show I did, the Australian Today show wanted me to record live. So I was in a Hollywood apartment in the middle of the night. And I unleashed, and said, this is what I have seen and I've experienced and know to be true. One man was the first one to call in. I was, this gruff scientist, and he's an Aussie. And I thought, oh boy, this man's going to let me have it. He said, I know you're right. I know you're right. Because my daughter had a Yorkie that refused to let me touch her. So the whole time he's around the dog will not be touched, will not be picked up, will not have much to do with it. The daughter was pregnant, went into the hospital and lost the baby.
Oh,
He's sitting at home crying, and this little Yorkie jumps up in his lap for the first time and licks his tears.
yeah.
The next one who called in said she had a kitten, and she went to the doctor and got diagnosed with an eye disease and said she was going to go blind. She got that information. She was at home lying on the floor crying. She said the kitten came up to her, put one paw on one eye, one paw on the other eye, and the cat became her seeing eye cat and was her
Wow.
seeing eye cat for the next 16 years when she did go blind.
Wow.
But I believe that and if it is not already there, you can tap into it. This angelic realm that they're bringing you hope and love and joy and beauty and laughter and fun and there isn't anything else that you could call it except to say that they're angelic beings.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. I'm here with my friend Hannah of Seeb and Solus, my favorite new skincare company and self-care. For that matter, they have pet care stuff too. Hannah, your company has changed my life. Tell us about your pet care products, why they're natural and effective.
If it benefits our skin, it benefits the pet's skin and their hair. It's the ability of the oil serums that actually penetrate into animals' skin very quickly without leaving any residue or any oiliness or greasiness. And it helps with moisture and hydration of their skin, because sometimes when they go outside, they get these little bugs or wounds or scabs. And our product is designed to help them heal faster and reduce any sort of itching that causes on the animals.
A lot of times my dogs itch. So what I do is I give them a bath with natural shampoo, and then I put on some of that pet oil from Seeb and Solus, and it's great. It makes their fur soft. I think they kind of lick it a little bit because it is food grade, for God's sake.
Yes, totally. It's fine for them to ingest it as well.
Exactly. And like we always say, if it's on your skin, you're drinking it. So that's a good litmus test to see if whatever you're using is safe. And everybody, Hannah has offered us a discount code for you to try not only the amazing pet care line she has, but all her beautiful skin and body and self-care. They got bath salts and serums and stuff to help you sleep at night. Please try it out. Seeb and Solus, enter the special coupon code FITAMYTV10, all caps, at checkout, and you'll save 10%. Well, for me, I would always say that Charlotte is, animals and children are our greatest teachers. I say that almost every day. And I used to refer to Charlotte as my furry little Buddha, because she would teach me so much. And, living most of my life truly disconnected from my body and my head, and just, my body and my feelings being in my head too much, just overthinking and, too left brain and too push, and not enough feeling. Disconnected from my intuition. The animals, for me, they're just such the perfect example of true embodiment and feeling nature, just the feeling nature. And again, just to teach us, like, because you can feel when I'm around my animals, we get so closely bonded that I feel like I feel them. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm feeling them and they're feeling me. And it's a very tangible, real experience. It's like an invisible web between us,
That invisible web is so important.
Yeah.
Because that is a portal where information travels back and forth. And this is why, no human being might be able to teach you what she's taught you. I've seen
God, no.
in the webinars that you've been taking with me, she's taught you,
Yeah.
you have telepathic ability. You can sense and maybe even feel inside other bodies. You can receive emotion and information from other animals, and you can remote view and find missing animals.
Yeah.
This is your teacher because it's a physical embodiment of your heart.
Yes. I used to say she's my heart with my heart with fur on it. So
Did
you're
you
right.
really? Though
Oh,
there you go.
literally, I'd say
I
that
don't
all the
even know
time.
why that came out of my mouth. And now
And there you
you
go. I literally said that all the time, that she's my heart with fur on it. I mean, I would look at her, Amelia, and I just would feel so overwhelmed physically with the feeling of like, I felt like my heart was going to burst. I
yeah.
just loved her so much. And love is so real when you really feel it. It's just as real as the chair I'm sitting on, I could feel it. It's like, and then I'll share too that when I got my Nico, my second little dog, when Charlotte was really, really bad last August, I got the second dog because I thought it would help Charlotte. She's always loved other dogs. She's just a big love bug. I understood for the first time in my life. I mean, here you go again, how they're our greatest teachers. It was the first time in my life I really understood what people mean by love is boundless, that there's not a scarcity of love. And it's not like if I love you, I don't have enough love for someone else, or I can't love two people at the same time because there's only so much love inside me to give. So if you get some, they get less. And, parents having multiple kids, how love is boundless, because I literally felt like when I got my Nico, my heart got bigger. I didn't have less love for Charlotte to give some to Nico. I just had more love. I had more love on top of love. I was like, how could I possibly love anything more than I loved Charlotte? But now that I'm in love with my Nico, I'm even more love. I'm more expanded. And I truly experienced for the first time in my life, after, how many decades of walking the planet, what that was all about. And what a beautiful gift, and I had to experience it because I intellectually heard about it, but I felt it myself. I was like, oh, now I get it. And there you go. Thank you for teaching me.
You're welcome. And I give this advice all the time, and people don't want to hear it. If they want to get one dog, especially if it's one male dog,
Mm-hmm.
not always a recipe for disaster, but often, because they are pack animals. And the person will say, well, I don't want to get two. I don't want him to have a girlfriend. I want to be the focus, or I want to be, the dad and get all the attention. And it's hard to understand that they can love each other and also love you.
Mm-hmm.
That they need to have some one of their own to talk with and sleep with and eat with and play with and roll with and run with, and they also, dogs will switch off duties. So if you've got one and she's the guard dog, I don't care how small she is, she might be a teacup Yorkie, but she's still the guard dog in her mind, and she gets no rest because it's only her. She's always watching that door. She's always monitoring your health. She's running the entire household. And when they have another one, they can say, all right, I'm going to take a nap. I'll sleep for half the night and then you take over. And they kind of tag team. But most people will say, well, I only want one. And then having two and knowing that they're happy together and being able to love both of them changes everything. Yes. And then on a quantum level, on a big level, Einstein wrote a letter to his daughter on his deathbed and said the biggest mistake he ever made in his life was using the word energy.
I did a podcast on that. I can't believe you're saying that.
He said it was a mistake. It's not E equals MC squared. He said it should have been love, not energy, in the equation. Now that may sound really silly and schmaltzy and fairy chasing and too white lighty, but let me explain what that means. And on a quantum level, let me explain what that means. Love is your willingness to see somebody else's point of view, to vibrate on their level and see the world through their eyes, feel their feelings, understand what they are perceiving. That's the level. That's the 5D level that we're trying to aspire to now, so that we understand what's going on with somebody else and why they're acting the way they are, why they're saying vile things or nasty things, or how they've been hurt and why they're lashing out in this way, how scared they are. And that's why it's coming out as violence. And with a lot of humans, I'm not going to blame anybody and say, you don't feel safe to do that, shame on you. The truth of the matter is, you probably aren't safe to do that. So, but you are safe to do that with your cat, your dog, your horse. So when you're able to meld your frequency, and this is no different than being able to turn on a computer and find an internet connection. If that connection, if that vibratory rate doesn't recognize and meet your laptop or your phone, you don't get any information. You're going to say, no signal, I can't get online. This ability, and again, it's like the seed and what the seed is really capable of. And the animals are the ones that are teaching us. The animals are showing us what we're truly capable of as a species. When we're able to expand our frequency into a place that it's safe, because you can love with your entire whole heart. Now, I say this all the time when I'm teaching, and if you can look at any animal, a photo of anybody's animal, and I don't care what it is, a cat, a dog, a horse, a mule, a donkey, a dolphin, an owl, an eagle, a parrot, anything, and be so in awe of their beauty that your eyes fill with tears, that you think your heart's going to explode. If you can, rather than saying it's my animal and I love them like this, we're going to take away the whole mine and not mine idea. I may have you in a class look at somebody else's horse. It's not your horse. You don't know this horse. But when you're able to look at this horse and love them, then you realize all animals on the planet are your animals. The whole planet is your planet, because you're loving. You're not connected with the head. As you just said, you're connecting on a deeper level. The heart is the threshold, the door to the soul. And then you're able to discover that you have supposedly extrasensory, supposedly supernatural ability.
It's located at your heart. That's the portal, how you get through to it. Mm-hmm.
We all have it. We all have it. It's how you choose to function and go through life. Every single person who hears that little voice inside the head that says, there's a big snowstorm there's a snowstorm coming. You better go get that errand done today. Or you might cancel that appointment in the morning because you're not going to be able to drive on the ice. There's a voice, and that voice is keeping us safe. It's guiding us when we're rebellious against it. And what's amazing is that we've all been taught to be rebellious against it. And then people will say in hindsight, well, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have bought that stock. I knew I shouldn't have. But what is it in us that can't just listen and say, thank you, God, Goddess, universe. Thank you for this information. I'm going to listen to this part of myself where all my sensitivity and intelligence are, rather than trying to tune it out, which always blows up in our face.
Yeah. I mean, getting back to respecting, well, first asking the question, tapping into our intuition, that inner voice, that still small knowing that's always located in our core, in our heart. and then having the courage to follow it is the other half of it, not talking ourselves out of it and overriding and then being afraid of how others are going to react to it. And because then you get all that, mental crap that comes in and screws it all up. It's like, well, do you have any advice for us to do that, to follow it, and no matter what the consequences on the exterior?
And isn't it amazing that it's a very Western world, it's a very colonialism kind of frame of mind, the way that we've been trained, that I can't trust myself and I'm going to worry what everybody else thinks.
Mm-hmm.
That if I trust myself, no one else is going to like what I'm doing and they're all going to make fun of me. And aren't you finding just the opposite is true? If I trust myself, and how often have you said to someone in confidence, I don't really want to go to that.
Oh yeah, of course. All the time.
And you're scared to death to tell them that. And then the other person will say, oh, thank God I didn't want to go either.
Yeah.
Tell anybody, tell you that I didn't really want to go. I mean, there's always this syncing up because you're listening to your soul's information, and that soul information is saying you might not be safe to go. This isn't the right decision to make. And other people are also receiving that, and it's like sunshine that's shining on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Or a breeze that's blowing that everybody feels.
Mm-hmm.
And once one person trusts it, it's really contagious. And then all of a sudden, everyone else is given permission. I mean, all I'm really doing as I'm teaching this telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, seeing inside bodies, healing, all these different things, starlight vision, communing with spirits in heaven, negotiating reincarnations. I mean, all these things. I'm just giving you permission to be yourself. I'm giving you permission to know what you've known since you were 4 years old and said, Mommy, why are you crying?
Mm-hmm.
Animals die in the winter and they come back in the spring. She was born with that knowledge. Now somebody has to turn to that child and shut him down. And, how dare you not acknowledge my suffering and conform to my limitations. So we've been taught not to. And now what's happening is the ceiling just blew off. The roof blew off everything on Earth. And it's time now for these light codes to be activated. And they are being activated, where there's a part of you that's connecting. I had one student, and I'll never forget it because I just love this analogy. After a workshop with me, and what I'm teaching is, you were born like this. Every child has 6 senses. Captain Edgar Mitchell would call it the first sense. He said it's not a 6th sense.
I've heard that. It's great.
Every baby who's born can think and feel and is trying to communicate and is telepathing and is aware of so much more than people think they are. So it's not something magical out there. It's something that was inside of you from the beginning. What's the difference between a human baby who can't talk yet and a dog? Nothing. The dog can't communicate. The dog can't get heard by the humans. So there's no other way to do that except to tune in. And that analogy where I'm saying this is something that every child has until it's shamed out of you and you're brainwashed out of you and you've been lied to enough. The cat doesn't have feelings. Who cares? Yeah, I took the dog off and put him to sleep. Who cares? Those are lies. And we all know that those are lies. And she said, at the end of the seminar, she said, I felt like a string of Christmas lights had gone out.
Yeah.
And you reconnected the Christmas lights in me from the child that I was, and as you know, it's what I'm teaching now, to that higher self that you're becoming.
Mm-hmm.
What's within it, what is between this vibration and that vibration is a lot of lies and pain.
Yeah,
And
programming.
programming. It's the way we've been taught to respond to the world, and it brings a lot of pain.
Yeah. Well, we're not, what we're doing is we are intentionally cutting off like half of, if not more, of who we are and what we're capable of. It's like, well, how intelligent is that? You know, we're not operating on all cylinders here.
96%. If the
Yeah.
scientists are saying we use
Yeah.
4% of our brains, and Einstein may have used 10% of his brain.
Yeah. Some of us less. Yeah.
And it's not even necessarily a brain thing. Scientists are now discovering, and this is real,
The heart brain.
information's coming in that's not only affecting every cell in your body, it's affecting your DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That we are transmitters, we are gigantic radio dishes, and we have the ability to pick up information that's happening in other parts of the world, or what's happening with an animal. If we don't learn how to use this, and it's no more magical than getting an internet connection and being able to email somebody.
Yeah.
It wasn't that many decades ago where that would have been thought to be completely outlandish. That would have been ridiculous. But I'm dating myself, but I grew up in a world where the phone was connected to the wall with a cord, and you had to bring you had to drag a chair over so that you could sit hunched talking on the phone like this. Well, somebody invented the internet, which means it came out of a human brain. And everything that's been invented on Earth is a reflection of what we're capable of intellectually. It couldn't have gotten invented if that information didn't already exist inside of our brains. Our brains can do it. And then every cell in our body can vibrate on at the same level of another living creature. And what connects it, I mean, long story short here, what connects it? Love is a willingness to feel what you feel, to feel the pain of the other animal, to feel the suffering, to feel the frustration. They can't talk to the humans. They can't get what they need. They're lonely, they're scared, they're not being given any information. Someone's going to haul them off to the vet. They don't know how long they're going to be there. They don't know what's going to happen. That we're keeping them in the dark, thinking that they can't understand anything. And this frequency, you don't need words. Because the words, we can say the word joy or play. Well, if I'm teaching in Norway, it's going to be a different word. If I'm teaching in Spain, it's a different word. So if I'm teaching in Brazil, it's a different, or Paris or London, or so those words, or Germany, they describe states of mind. The language is not the state of mind. And what's being translated through language is very limited. What's being transferred through your heart and your soul is completely comprehensive. It's a willingness to feel and see the world through this person's point of view, even if that person is a frog or a spider or a bird. It's the willingness to love them.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and also in combination with what I've learned through you over the years, is we have to go through our heart to connect to the other creature, kind of like heart to heart, to feel them. And that's kind of how you make that connection. And is a tremendous amount of respect and admiration. And you know, we're using the word love a lot, but it's just like a tremendous acceptance, like unconditional acceptance. And that's another key thing I've learned from you, Amelia, is, like when, say, the dog is sick or doesn't feel well or whatever, and particularly when my Charlotte was, really, hurting at the end and aging very much, achy getting up, and I could tell she wasn't really comfortable. And you would teach us that to talk to her like, just so beautiful, the way that your message is to really just accept the animal and let them know you accept them. And it's okay, Charlotte. I sometimes I don't feel well either, and it's okay that you don't feel well today. And here's a blanket, and no problem. Like, it just was it's such a different way of relating with the animal. And of course we can extrapolate that to how we relate to people. Like, it's truly, because at the end of the day, it's really about unconditional love, right? That's what we're all trying to do to be enlightened, is to be able to love unconditionally, which is so hard to do. But once again, the animals are our best teachers.
It's a maturity level.
Hmm.
So we're connecting now, and it doesn't matter what religion you are, what country you're in. Our avatars are parental. It's either a divine mother, it's a divine father that we're praying to, somebody who has more compassion and more wisdom than we do. And if you think about, maybe your animal gets sick, the last thing you want to do is stress them out.
Right.
And if our initial reaction is to freak out and cry and start screaming, what that tells me about the person is that that's how their parents acted. Their parents acted like little children who enjoy stressing out their kids. Is the last thing on earth that you would need. If you're in the hospital, you don't need somebody coming in screaming and crying, she's dying, wow. And usually they're not. Usually they're like, you know what, not today. I got a stomach ache, I'm sorry, I need a day off. No one ever lets their horse have that day off. No one ever does. Or maybe they just have a headache. Maybe they're missing the horse next to them, that the person doesn't even realize it was their best friend and they were madly in love with that other horse. That other horse gets hauled out of there, and your horse goes into a deep, deep depression because they're so emotional. But to be able to look at this creature who has ups and downs, not perfect in every way, every day, which is what humans, I see this all the time. It's that slave driving. You have to be perfect in every way. You can't sit down during a walk. You're not allowed to not eat your food, you cat. I'm going to stand over you and torture you like a vulture and make you eat this food and give you another one. Eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. I recently said this to somebody. I said, have you ever considered it's not what the cat is eating, it's how he has to eat his meal? With a gigantic ape leaning over him, stressing him out of his mind. Now, all cats do this. They'll take up a bite of it and they'll say, yeah, well, it's okay. I'll come back later. I'll come back and finish it later. It's really beautiful. My favorite bird's outside. So I need to go outside and chase the birds around. I'll come back and eat it. And then the person's taking the food away. And then the person will call me, he won't eat his food. He blah, blah, blah. And it's the environment. Some cats like to be pet while they eat. Some cats like to eat up high. You don't throw the food down on the floor and leave. With most animals, eating is pack behavior. When my old Maine Coon wouldn't eat at all, I'd put him on eye level with me. And if I put my fork in the food and he saw food go in my mouth, he'd eat. 3.5 years.
Nico's like that. Charlotte would eat 100. She would eat 24/7, as much as a Great Dane. She was 5 pounds. Nico, no. But when I eat, he'll finally eat. Like I can't get him to eat, but when I eat, he eats. That's so funny.
In the wild, if you think about this, animals make a kill and they all eat together.
Right. I never
Cats
thought about it that.
together. Wolves eat together. Lions eat together.
Yeah.
And so it's just the way maybe you don't want to sit alone.
Yeah.
in a restaurant.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter how good the food is. Maybe you don't want to sit there by yourself.
It's like a social bonding thing. The family eats together.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm.
But in this case, when you're talking about they're elderly, maybe they don't move as well as they used to.
Yeah.
And people come in and they want to fix it. They
Yeah.
want to heal it. And they want to be a healer. And they want, but wait a minute. That's not what life is about. And
Yeah.
I've said, why don't you take the pressure off them
Yeah.
and more focus on, I'm going to put on beautiful music for these animals today.
Yeah. It's so
I'm
great.
going to create a great smell. She can't move very easily, but I can bring in herbs from the garden and flowers.
Mhm.
I can show her different colors. I can create a wonderful environment. Say, I
Yeah.
understand, and this is what happened with my cat Floribel, that you can't move from the waist down. So what can we do with your paws? Just your front paws. What can we do to have a wonderful day today?
Wow. That's amazing.
Now, I'm
Yeah.
not judging the fact
So
that
beautiful.
she was expected to die within the next 48 hours
Wow.
because she had been attacked by she got attacked by a dog, and then a cyst exploded, and then her whole back exploded and was missing. And I flew this dog across the country. I mean, this cat, thinking she's going to die. At least she'll die with me, feeling loved, feeling really, really loved.
And didn't she like recover? I think I remember the story.
I had
Didn't
another
hers-
4 years.
Yeah, you had another 4 years. That's like, well, there you
She
go.
recovered from incurable spinal damage.
Mhm,
Entire
mhm.
back was missing
Yeah,
from her
she was
neck.
missing like her body parts and she still
Anything.
survived.
It was a cavern.
Ugh, wow.
But how would you want to be treated? I mean, let's say
Mhm.
you're in bed with a headache,
Yeah.
stomach ache, you're nauseous.
Mhm.
You don't want some frenzy of negativity,
Yep.
somebody coming being a drama queen, hysterical. That's not what a mother does.
Well, I know part of the thing with a lot of people would say to me when I was going through that with Charlotte is the challenge, Amelia, with the animals, unlike with children, is they can't quote unquote communicate what's wrong. Like we don't know they had a headache. Like we can talk about, if you want, what happened to me the day after Charlotte passed, because I had some physical body experiences after that. And I think she was inside my body. But and maybe you can speak to me and the audience about what would you say when we say, but it's, and part of what happened with Charlotte too was why it was so hard for me is because I realized that it wasn't just me being in so much pain because I saw her in pain and knowing she was going to be leaving soon, and me grieving her for many months because I knew it was coming. And that was so unbearably painful for me. It also was frustrating because I didn't know how to help her, and she couldn't communicate. Mom, I have a stomach ache. Mom, my knees hurt. Or mom, I'm tired. I do want to leave now. Like, it's time for me to pass. Please help me. It just, kids can talk, at least when they get to a certain age, to tell mommy, my tummy hurts. Like, we don't know as the owners how to help them. So do you have any tips or guidance for us? Like how do we know how to help them? And how do we handle our own, projecting our own pain onto the animal, or not do that, I should say.
Well, I mean, this is the whole premise of animal communication. Fix
Okay.
the roof while the sun still shines. Fix the roof while the sun still shines.
Okay.
That means you learn how to communicate, you learn how to listen, you learn how to use these inner faculties. We all have inner ears, inner eyes, inner tasting, inner touch, all of these things that are happening around us. They, in essence, are actually happening inside of us. We don't think of it in those terms. But let's say that you have psychic vision, which you do, the ability to hear information, which you do, the ability to feel information, which you do. You don't wait until the emergency happens. Same thing with people with their missing animals. Track them every day. Learn how to track them every day. You
Great
learn
advice. Yeah.
how to do it because you're going to need it. The time's going to come where you're going to need it. And they need it all day, every day.
Yeah.
All their supposed problems and the bad behavior, it all comes from not being listened to.
Wow.
It all comes from not being heard and not being
Wow.
understood.
Yeah.
And having a person say, I don't care what you want. You're going to do what I want. I'm going to drag you if I have to. Rather than saying, all right, now wait a minute, what's going on with you? And then you might have, and I'm not talking about you personally, but let's say that you can anticipate a problem because you might have a 6-month jump on it. If that animal's already saying, kind of back, my back hurts, have a little issue here. And you're already on it. You know what tooth is going to go bad. You know what they're going through because you bother to put in all the attention and the love and the discipline that it takes to hear them.
And those communicating on that and tapping into that subtle level of energy and feeling is so difficult when you're emotionally charged up. It's like you can't. So I love your analogy, do it while the sun is still shining, fix the roof, because when it's a storm, like you're kind of in panic and you're just vibrating so hard and fast that you can't calm down and be receptive enough to just clear yourself out of the way to channel it in.
Well, in a lot of cases, we make the animal the parent.
Oh.
And when the parent starts to die or even get sick and slow down, the inner child within us panics because
definitely.
We have everything invested in this relationship and not enough invested in being the parent, of being able to cradle somebody, to say, it's all right, my darling.
Yeah.
I know you don't feel good today. It's okay, my darling. Whenever you're ready to go to heaven, it's going to be beautiful. You're going to jump out of that body and be a new little puppy body that'll never grow old and never be sick and never die. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be fabulous. Don't worry about me. I don't want you to feel guilty about me. I'm supporting your voyage. And then who's the parent and who's the baby?
Wow.
I'm the parent. They're the baby. And they're free to be able to go without all this. They're struggling. Usually, animals don't have as much fear. They don't have as much trouble dying as humans do. I'm not saying there isn't fear involved in a hunted animal, but even in that situation, there's a cycle of life. I see it all the time in Africa, where the puku or the kudu or the wildebeest kind of says a lot, okay, you got me. It's almost like a game of tag. Now
you probably see a lot of death in Africa, right? Like because you go there on your safari every year. And we could talk about that too, because I want you to share with people to have this amazing experience with you. But I'm sure because that is the cycle of life. So you've probably seen a lot of death in Africa, right? Firsthand.
Well, the lion comes back as the antelope, and the antelope comes back as the lion.
So cool.
So there's this harmony involved in this wheel of life. And it's possible that even your dog went to heaven and said, I want to come back as a big dog because I couldn't see out the window and I want to be big and ferocious and everybody will be afraid of me and no one will. And then sometimes the other way around. Big dogs will tell me, well, I want to be a little dog because I want her to put me in my purse and take her with me everywhere she goes. I don't ever want to be left at home. So in Africa, the story, I mean, it's a long and involved story. I think I wrote about it in Whispers from the Wild, but I didn't write about this. when my chocolate Persian, I had I had the kookiest cat, the funniest, weirdest cat. And he would never meow. He said rah, rah, rah. And this is,
That's the sun god, Ra.
exactly, and what lions say.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of very magical experiences with him where I'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd shapeshift into an African king, and the cat only came to the sound. I rescued, he was going to get killed. And my cat sitter had this cat that was not supposed to be in his apartment. And I adopted this cat, this enormous chocolate Persian. And this cat would attack dogs, which was hilarious. And he would only answer to, he would click. And I kept asking him his name because every soul has a name. He would only answer to a click. And it was after that, I went down to Africa and I met an African man named Olani. And Olani means the wise one in Xhosa.
With the click in it. His name has the click.
So the cat was extraordinary. He'd headbutt the bathtub. And I said, you're kidding me, right? You do not want in this bubble bath. You're kidding me. And he'd headbutt the bathtub until I would pick him up and put him in the bathtub and just scrub him. And he'd just lie on his back. He loved every second of it.
My cats didn't like water.
Well, this one does.
That's great.
Did. And I mean, the story, it goes on and on and on. It was such a magical story. When he left his body, he let out a roar like a lion.
Wow.
So Doc, I called him Doc because he was my doctor, my shrink, my workout clown. He was my doctor. He was a doctor for my soul as well as my body. And I was on my way to a safari, and I received a message from him that he was coming back as a lion. And I'm now going to be in the third or fourth or maybe in the fifth generation of the elephants that I see every year, and the leopards I see every year, and the lions I see every year. I haven't been since COVID. And before
They're
that,
the same families.
Yes.
They keep coming to you every year when you go back.
I visit the same ones because it's in South Luangwa National Park in Zambia, which wins every conservation award every year. It has the highest concentration of lions and leopards in the world. So the last time I went and I knew who it was a lioness that I know, that I've also had magical encounters with. I knew she had had 3 cubs. So this is what most people might do when they dream, if they're lucky. But to have access to these realms, to have access to it, it's available to everybody. You just have to unplug from your ego, which most people don't want to do, and stop doing battle and stop needing to be right and stop trying to figure everything out. There's a surrender in it. There's a real sweetness in it when you're just listening.
And have a relationship, like not look externally for like how to do it. Just connect with your animal yourself. Like don't even, read a book about, just have the relationship and let it teach you.
That's right. And beautifully said. So I got down there and we found her, and there were 3 little bumbling lion cubs. I mean, they were the size of pumpkins. Their eyes had just opened. 3 little cubs. And we're coming up to them in the truck because I asked this mommy mentally to bring me the babies.
Wow.
We find her. They're the babies. And in my mind, I said, is one of you Doc? And these 3 lion cubs, one of them turned around and looked at me. And he left the mom and the babies and he starts toward me. He starts,
Your cat.
yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm sitting on the safari truck and here he comes. And he comes and the mom,
I was just say she let him. Yeah.
she let him.
Wow.
Not only did she let him, she got up and started walking off into the bush in the savannah. And the other two cubs started going off. This was one of my moments of truth where I had to do, and this is also a hard thing, and I teach it, but it's a hard thing. Not what you want, what's right for them.
Oh yeah, that's love. That's love.
And I said, I'm not your mommy anymore.
Oh,
She's your mommy. You've got to go catch up with your mommy.
that's love.
And the mom, and this was a previous story, previous years. She came out to see me, one of the first safari I'd done, and said, are you alone? Because we'd had trouble with other tourists on the truck. He finally left and there was no distractions. And this lioness said, are you alone? I said, yeah. And I had students with me on the truck, but we're all in this same vibe. We're in this loving, unconditionally, just burst into tears at the beauty of these animals. She said, good, there's somebody I want to introduce you to. And out comes this chocolate covered lion. He was the darkest lion I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I had a chocolate Persian. And this lion shimmied down the cliff, and we're right next to they were right next to the truck, and they start mating right next to me.
Wow.
And I said, wow, to what do I owe this honor? And she said, I want you to bless the conception of my first child.
Wow. Oh my God, Amelia.
Right. Well, what I didn't know was that is when I realized that my cat, who was in Manhattan at the time, was dying.
Oh no.
But this is before he passed away. What I knew was that her first child was going to be my cat.
Oh, wow.
He died in Manhattan.
But you didn't know at the time when they were.
At the time. And when he came back, that was his mommy.
Wow. So he came back as a lion.
He came back as a lion.
Yep.
Which he was anyway. Originally, he was a lion.
Right. Yep.
And even in the movie The Lion King, the African shaman believed that lions come back as kings and kings come back as lions. So this was an African king so once you see,
what a blessing to have him as a cat.
Yeah, the pocket of agony is before you experience the magic again.
Oh,
and
boy.
sometimes the magic comes through as they send you a bird or they send a butterfly. Spirits can send creatures that have wings more easily than anything else. And I hear this all over the world. I mean, at this moment, a bird just appeared two of them. I've got two windows in front of me. Birds just appeared in both windows.
Right now?
Right now.
Oh, cool.
So they're sending the messages. This soul is safe. They have the ability to come back to you if they want to. Sometimes they're going to send another soul who's very close to them, a son or a daughter or someone like that. And you've got the ability to tune into that and even negotiate that reincarnation. Now, if you're willing to talk about this, Amy, because it's raw and it's painful, but it's astonishing when I tune into where Charlotte is now.
Okay, let's hear it. Because it's funny you said about the signs. When I Just to clarify, I did bring her to the vet to assist in her passing. It was time. The last day she was in a lot of discomfort, and back to what you said about the most loving thing. It was the hardest thing. I actually talked to you that night. I almost couldn't do it. It was, my knees went weak that in the vet. I was holding her in a pink blanket, and it was time to do it. And my legs went out, and and you actually helped me through it to do it. But it was truly the final act of love I could do for her, because it was the hardest thing I could do. But I asked her that night, please show me a sign when you're safe on the other side. And it's been 2 weeks now, and I can't say I've seen a sign for sure. So maybe you could kind of expand on that, like about how we see signs, and part of what you're going to share about Charlotte now.
It's, the world is so much more magical than what we think.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how much easier this would have been if we not only don't, people hide this pain from their children.
No.
Most people say the dog disappeared, and you find
Yeah.
out the parent took them to the vet and put them down. They didn't let the child participate in the grief, rather
Mhm.
than saving them from the pain, to let your children have a funeral for that child.
Yeah.
Your children write thank you notes and put special gifts on that grave. Then they know that this pain is part of life, but the rebirth is part of life. And
Mhm.
I wrote a story about this in one of my books. It might have been The Language of Miracles, where I was with Laura Bell, and we're in bed in North Hollywood, and she starts shaking like she's having a seizure. And
Is
then
it your cat?
and the bed starts shaking, and we're trying to get to sleep. I'm going, what is going on here? What are we going to have, an earthquake? What is this? We finally got to sleep, and then we found out that I saw in the news the next morning there was an earthquake in another part of the world, and the people were trapped underground.
Ooh.
So this is a feeling almost like a spider on a web, that when you're connected to the field, you're going to feel things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people shy away from their intuition, their psychic ability, because they have picked up on something that was really negative and scary when they were kids. So they shut it out. They don't want to be that sensitive. But you're also shutting yourself out to all the miracles and the joy if you do that. So it was a shock to me when I was reading an animal, and I think it was a dog. And then another dog shows up, and they all start talking to me. Tell Connie I said hi. Now I see a beagle. Well, Connie was my workshop coordinator in Florida. And I went, well, I didn't know Connie had a beagle. And she said, the spirit says to me, I said, are you sure you're a beagle? The spirit says to me, what part of I'm a beagle do you not understand? I went, okay, you're a beagle. And just, I gotta go, takes off. Another one comes to me, it's a Bernese mountain dog, someone that I knew also named Amelia. I tell Beth, I said, hi. I said, okay, I'll tell her you said, I said, I gotta go. I said, what are you doing? He said, we're digging. And they all kept coming saying, we're digging. I can't talk now. I got to go. I couldn't even do the reading. The animal was in heaven. I'm busy. I'm digging. I got to go. And then I said, show me where you are. And I believe it was Afghanistan. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was a long time ago. And I saw a vision. I said, show me where you are. And I saw all of these men digging through the rubble, trying to get at the bodies out that were still alive. And connected to every man who was exhausted. They'd been up all night. They had a cord from that man's heart to the animal in heaven. And the dogs were standing behind every man saying, keep digging, don't stop. They were funneling strength into these men. So when Charlotte went, right after Charlotte went, was this massive earthquake in Syria, this colossal earthquake that they
You mean
just
when she passed 2 weeks ago? We
Yeah.
had the earthquake. Yeah.
right after she went. Right after she went. And I went, and so she did. Sometimes there was a little bit, there was a lag. I
Yeah.
felt it too. It was up all
Yeah.
night that night too, as she was trying to get
Yes.
oriented.
And the next day was probably the worst day of my life, even physically. I can't even, I don't want to interrupt, but yes,
Yeah,
she was not okay for a little while. She was in the liminal space, I think.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and this is another tangent. I don't even want to get off on it, but if humans or animals die under the influence of drugs and anesthesia, sometimes they get a little disoriented.
Mm.
Or say that they OD, or
Oh.
sometimes they get disoriented, or children. They don't want to leave their mother on earth, so not as likely to go into the light and run toward an angel. And that's where the jobs that animals have in heaven that they show me all the time, a lot of them say their job is to go to earth and get the babies that have just crossed over, the children that have died, and guide them over, because they don't want to leave. They won't go.
Wow. They'll follow the animal.
They'll follow the animal.
Wow.
And sometimes they'll, in spirit, they're going through a children's hospital, just sitting on people's, sleeping with the kids or with elderly people. I mean, we've got angels around us at all times. And the whole, take away the hierarchy of what we think we're better than, which is ridiculous, and acknowledge that beauty, that God has created beauty in all these different shapes. Consciousness, it's all consciousness. With insects, consciousness is all consciousness.
Plants.
For sure. So now I turned into Charlotte, and she said, I'm busy. I'm working. I mean,
That's my dog, just like her mother. Oh, boy.
I said, what are you doing? Because I can't see this little tiny Yorkie digging.
Right.
And I said, are you digging? And the first time she said to me, I'm sniffing. And I said, what are you sniffing? She's sniffing for people that are still alive.
Wow.
In the rubble. And then she said, she's finding children and babies. And not only is she going to them when they're half buried in the rubble to lick their faces and give them strength and keep them alive, she's directing the rescue workers to the babies. And she's trying to get through to the men, saying, look over here. Look over here. There's a child under here. There's a baby under here. And it changes everything when you realize this earth is just a little tiny speck of what's going on in the whole universe.
Yes.
And they may have jobs that are more important.
Yeah.
They're needed. When animals pass away, and I say, who met you? And I teach this in the webinars now. Who came to greet you when you crossed over? A lot of the time, they'll not only describe what the person's grandfather or grandmother or mother in heaven, they maybe give me the name, and then they'll say, well, the person just came, put a hand on the animal. The angel came and said, we got to go. It's time to go. And they just jump out of their bodies and they assist in these massive projects. And sometimes it's really lofty, like global warming or COVID stuff or medical problems, or they're police dogs, or they're trying to get political things sorted out. So you take away the idea that the outer edge of something is all there is to it. The shell of the acorn doesn't look like much, But look at the design inside of that thing. Look what it's going to be.
Yeah, the potential.
A gargantuan oak tree. So, and the animals that are guiding us into this new fifth dimensional change, into this new earth change. It's already here. It's happening here. It's where we choose to put our attention.
Mhm.
By the process of making the animal's day more beautiful, they make your life more beautiful. Because you're going to go out and look at the flowers and observe animals and trees and unplug from all the stress of the human world and watch them play, and they make you laugh, and they roll in the mud, and they're like, hey, let's get back in the real world now, Mom. And it's very sensuous, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, everybody, I hope you're enjoying the show. I'm here with Wade Lightheart from Bioptimizers, my favorite supplement company. Wade, what would you say to somebody that says, you know what, I eat really healthy. I have a really healthy diet. I don't need supplements. Is that possible?
It's virtually impossible in today's world. And if you understand diets, and I've been studying this my entire life, and every diet has a trade-off. There are advantages of every diet and there are disadvantages of it. And in the world that we live in today, the nutrient quality has diminished at such an extensive rate. It's almost or virtually impossible to get all the elements that you require out of your diet. So what you want to do is you want to take your diet, you want to overlay that with your genetics, and then you want to look at, hey, what are the things that I need more of? What are the things I need less of? And what are the things that I'm absolutely not getting? And by doing that, you're using intelligence, you're using science, and you're supplementing in a way that allows you to enjoy the dietary choices that you like or that you prefer without compromising any aspect of your health. And that's the intelligent way to supplementation.
Brilliant. I love it. And your company, Bioptimizers, is my favorite. I take them every day, selectively, of course. And I'm so confident that they're going to work for you. Your company has graciously given us a coupon code. People can try them at a discount by entering AmyF10 at checkout. They can save 10%. And you have a money-back guarantee. If they don't like them for any reason, they can return them. No questions asked. But we know you're going to love them. So enjoy, everybody. So do you have any, as we're getting toward the end here, do you have any help for those people that might have tuned into this episode today to comfort them, like with processing the deep feeling? Because we feel so much of the grief from our deep attachment to these animals, and we need to mourn that by physically expressing the grief to move it out of us so we can get to the reframe of looking back at it with gratitude for the relationship, for the love that was shared. But do you have any advice through all your experience for those of us that are in the grief of just losing a pet? Like
I do.
Mhm.
Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, that was it. I could have gone on.